What is going on, everybody? Today is episode 1 of the Narkman's Rabbitholes podcast. And this podcast is going to be basically a medium for me to rant about whatever it is that I'm passionate about at the time, for anywhere to 20 minutes to an hour, anything like that. And we're going to start off with a banger on this one. So, this one is going to be something that I'm always going to be passionate about. And it's going to involve nutrition, okay? So, specifically, it's going to involve 4 ingredients that are used in the U.S., that are fully allowed in the U.S., that are banned in other parts of the world. Specifically, Europe is going to be what I'm comparing most of these to, but China even has one of them banned. And if China's banning an ingredient, you got to watch out for that. So, anyways, our first one on the list. Oh, and before we actually get into the list, all of these sources, there's about 25 sources for the research that I did here. Um, all of that will be in the show notes or in the description. If you want to check it out, you should check them out because they are very good sources. Some of them are the actual studies that I'm referencing here. Some of them are just articles that were put out by different news media, or the FDA's website itself is one of the sources I'm going to be using. Definitely check those out if you are interested in this. If you don't want to check it out, well, just know they're there. Anyways, the first one on our list, and I have a printout. I got 4 pages of notes here. I'm going to be reading through the notes, and then I will kind of stop and give my comments during the reading of it. These are all notes that I gathered from my own research here, but it's mostly quoted from other things, and when I do quote them, I'll tell you where it came from. So the first on our list is going to be brominated vegetable oil. So brominated vegetable oil has been used in the United States since the 1920s as an emulsifier in citrus drinks. So what it physically is, it's a vegetable oil that's been modified by adding bromine to the fat molecules, specifically in soybean oil typically. I'm not sure if they use canola as well, but I know it's definitely in soybean oil. And this bond, what it does, the reason they add it, is it stops the citrus flavoring from de-emulsifying or like separating from the rest of the solution. So, say you're looking at like a Fanta or something, it keeps that orange goodness in the drink instead of floating it to the top where it normally would be without this. Let's see. So, the ingredient was marked by the FDA as generally recognized as safe, or GRAS is what they classify it as. That's what they give to anything that is like generally recognized as safe by them, which in fact is a lot of things you should never eat. So keep listening. And that was in the 1950s and 60s. It was marked as safe, and during the 70s, after some studies came out, they concluded that BVO was not safe for consumption because of adverse effects of the heart. That comes from the FDA's website, FDA.org. That's literally from them from the 70s. They said that this is not healthy in animals. It's causing different like heart disease and other adverse effects. And despite this, the ingredient has still been used and consumed by millions of Americans every day. It's been known for over 50 years, like I just said, to be damaging. And something I thought was rather funny is that this month of this year, November 2nd, 2023, the FDA proposed a ban for for brominated vegetable oil. So, 53 years too late, but better late than never. Anyway, let's see. I lost where I was. So a study done in the 80s showed that rats that were consuming BVO as 2% of their diet had significant reproductive harm. So this was done in 1983 by 4 different scientists. I can't pronounce their names, so again, it'll be in the show notes. Um, but 1983, again, we're seeing significant reproductive harm. That's quoted from the study, from the actual paper that you can find in the National Library of Medicine. It is there. It is in the show notes. Let's see. More recent studies done last year, 2022, showed that BVO increased levels of bromine in the thyroid, which is a target organ for a multitude of negative health effects. Thyroid cancer, mainly, is what they're worried about in this one. Another recent study found that long-term exposure to small doses of bromine can cause neurologic damage, leading to headaches, memory loss. Let's see. leading to headaches, memory loss, and impaired balance or coordination. That comes from Middlesex Health in partner with Mayo Clinic. Um, that is a reputable source. You can't really refute Mayo Clinic too bad. Now, where was this? Like, why do we even care? This was used for a long time in Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all of their products, most soda products, whether they're citrus flavored or not. They were in most products that those companies made. Um, the manufacturers stopped using it in 2014. That fact comes from USA Today. So 2014 is a lot of years after 1970. And you can't blame the companies too much. I mean, obviously you can if they're using carcinogens as one of their ingredients. That is not a pass for anyone. But the FDA didn't propose that ban until this month of this year, 53 years later out than that original study came out. And if that ban gets approved, it won't even go into effect until 2027. Supposedly, I couldn't find much information on that, but regardless, that's a long time to be allowing people to like consume carcinogens and free radicals that are horrible for you. So that's cool. And this ingredient has been banned in Europe, Japan, and California for many years. It's been a long time. But when you look at the manufacturers that stopped using it back in 2014, was PepsiCo and Coca-Cola, and that includes Mountain Dew, Sunkist, many different like flavors, root beers, Fanta. That's all under that umbrella for the most part. So Coke used to have crack in it. Okay, this is a crazy fact. I didn't even fact check this, but I've heard this a lot, that Coke originally had cocaine in it, and that's where the name comes from, back in like 20s or something. I don't know. I didn't care to look that up. But the bottom line is these companies don't actually care about your health. They're still using high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, sodium benzoate, Ace K, sucralose, all of these ingredients that are known to be bad for you, especially bad for the heart in some cases, bad for the gut health in other cases. They don't care about your health. So for them to voluntarily remove brominated vegetable oil from their ingredients list is kind of crazy. There was no pressure from the FDA to remove that back in 2014. There is slight pressure now, and some companies do still use it. A lot of house brands, like Walmart brand sodas, that sort of thing, will still use it because it's a cheap ingredient and they can use a lot of it. But they don't care about you. So the fact that the consumers have to make an uproar of an extravagant extent for manufacturers to remove it, the manufacturers being Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, that really don't care about your health, as far as I can tell, with the other ingredients they use, that's gotta be terrible for you. And it wasn't even proposed to be banned until this month of this year, 2023, November. That's just crazy to me. Like, I don't know. It shows that the FDA is really not looking out for you so much. That's kind of the entire point of this video, is that you need to look for yourself when you can. Some of the time, these ingredients aren't even on the ingredients label. I'll get into that later in another one. But the FDA is not looking out for you. They're not helping you. Just know that this brominated vegetable oil, it's really not used anymore. But I still thought it was a great one to bring up, just because of the history of it. We know since the 70s that it's killing rats, and we were allowed to eat it. We're still allowed to eat it in the U.S. because I don't know if that ban has been approved or not. Anyway, number one was a banger. We're going to get into some other ones. If you can't tell, this is something that I'm super passionate about. It's not these ingredients specifically, because I didn't know about most of these. I knew about one of them. That's number 3. I knew it was an ingredient in sunscreen. I did not know you were eating it. Anyways, we'll get into that later. Totally lost where I was going with that, but we're going to get into number 2, and that one is, this is a doozy. It's azodicarbonamide. I'm going to be referring to it as ADA. That's the informal name for it. Basically, ADA is a chemical substance that was approved by the FDA for use as a whitening agent in cereal flour and a dough conditioner in bread baking. So you're going to see another one from bread. I don't know why bread is like this big thing they got to add a bunch of stuff to, because it's bread. It's like, it's pretty simple. You don't need to add all this crazy stuff. But it's most famous for its use in at Subway. Actually, there was a really big, I don't know what you'd call it. It was a really big uproar from consumers when they found out Subway was using these ingredients because of reasons that we're about to get into. But it was used in Subway for a long time. They don't use it anymore. Fiber One, Farm Rich, Essential Everyday, and McDonald's and Wendy's. So very big corporations that were using this ingredient. And for McDonald's and Wendy's, I am not sure if they still use it or not. I know Subway does not anymore, as of it was like 2016 or something. I don't remember the date. It's around that time, but they don't use it anymore. But you can still find it in stores and stuff. This is not banned in the U.S. right now. Let's see, where was I? Like I said, it's in a lot of things such as hamburger buns, garlic bread, Texas toast, those kind of processed bready, salty products use this a lot. And like they'd be in the buns at Wendy's and McDonald's, like when they were using them before. Let's see. Now, it's all around us. It's been shown to have a direct link to the onset of asthma. So here's a quote. According to the World Health Organization, regular occupational exposure to ADA can lead to asthma and allergies. That comes from globalhealing.com. Again, it's in the show notes. You can check it out. This is the least concerning thing, right? Asthma's not good, obviously, but this is the least concerning thing about ADA. We're going to get into more of this. The reason ADA is such a big deal is because of the toxic byproducts that are produced when ADA is heated. And if most of you have common sense, you put bread in an oven to cook it, right? You heat it up. So it's going to make these when you make the bread with this ingredient in here. So these two things, let's see. These two byproducts that come from when ADA is heated are known as semicarbazide and ethyl carbamate. Studies of semicarbazide show that the substance is carcinogenic and causes free radical damage to DNA in animals. This was a study, again, in the show notes in 2014 by 2 or 3 different scientists. It's a reputable study and has substantial evidence behind it. The National Institute of Health Hazardous Substances Data Bank states this ethyl carbamate, which is the other one that is produced when this ingredient is heated, is also carcinogenic. And that fact is backed in over 200 studies. Okay, that is a lot of evidence for this to be bad, for us to believe that fact. A study from 1999 demonstrated that use of ADA in baking increases the ethyl carbamate concentration in the finished product. That study was basically proving that using this ingredient and heating it up in the bread does in fact produce these other 2 chemicals that are harmful for your health. And let's see. This isn't even where it ends for ADA. Many studies have also shown that ADA compromises the immune system, is harmful to hormone function, and increases the irritability of gluten. And I have lastly on here, this is banned in Europe and has been for years. So where do we start with ADA? So it's in itself is not necessarily bad for you. I'm not sure what the studies are for eating the ingredient as it is starting in the bread or dough, because it's not bread yet. But it's known to produce 2 different substances that are both known and backed by over 200 studies to have adverse health effects. This ingredient is not required in bread making. This is used, what is this even used? It's used as a whitening agent and a dough conditioner. So it probably makes the bread fluffier, brighter, whiter, that sort of thing. But it's absolutely not necessary. French people, okay, this is banned in Europe. French people, I'm pretty sure, still eat baguettes. We don't need it over here. It's not necessary in bread. If French people can be happy with their baguettes, you can be happy with your Subway sub, because this is no longer in that. But it is not banned in the U.S. I believe it is regulated by the FDA, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. Basically, manufacturers are still allowed to add this carcinogen producing ingredient into their foods, which is just absolutely absurd. And look out for it on the ingredients label because it should be on ingredients labels. I'm guessing most major manufacturers will not be using this anymore. But if you're buying house brand bread, something like that, especially, it's azodicarbonamide. And again, all these studies are going to be in the show notes, so you can learn how to pronounce it too, because I clearly have not learned how to do it. But anyways, that's enough for ADA. My cameras are about to turn off, so I'll catch you back with number 3 of 4. We got 4 here today. All right, so number 3 is another doozy. Okay, this one I was alluding to a little bit earlier. It's an ingredient that is in sunscreen. So, any of you that are cognizant about sunscreen ingredients and using the non-carcinogens that are in some sorts of sunscreens, that's a whole nother episode in itself. It's titanium dioxide. So it's also known as TiO2NPS in one of the studies that I linked. It's going to be known by that in the study. That's the scientific molecular name, whatever. Basically, it's a powder that's used as a white pigment in a variety of products. Like I said, sunscreen, paints, and plastic. That fact comes from webmd.com. In nature, it does exist in nature. As you'd maybe guess, it is oxidized titanium. It's found in a lot of things like sand, dust, and soil. But the ingredient that you're going to find in your food is not naturally occurring. It's artificially made from a couple different minerals. Let's see. They're from brookite, rutile, and anatase. I have no idea what any of those are, but I'm sure I don't care to eat them. I probably shouldn't say it because I don't know. I don't know what those are. But they're made from that, whatever that means. And it's used in food to define colors clearly and helps prevent UV degradation. So that UV degradation part is the same property that makes it a good sunblock. It's not a sunscreen, it's a sunblock. Those are two different things. That's another episode in itself. Not going to get into that right now, but basically it helps stabilize it on the shelf from sunlight because sunlight is damaging to most products in general. That's why a lot of things are not see-through, like the containers that they come in. But you'll mostly find it in things that are white because titanium dioxide also is like the whitest white pigment you can find. I found that fact somewhere in one of those sources and I couldn't find it again. So don't ride home with that, but it's very bright white. It's unnatural. Let's see. You'll mostly find it in milk, coffee creamer, salad dressing, candy, chocolate, gum, and even vitamin supplements. So the one ingredient that's like jumps out at me from that is milk. Milk is already white. You do not need to add white product into it or white ingredient into it to make it white. And to the UV degradation point, just put it in an opaque container or a brown container, something that doesn't let light through if you're worried about that oxidation or that exposure to sun, whatever happens in that reaction. Like, most almond milk, soy milk, those kind of things, they come in cardboard boxes that sunlight doesn't get through. So if that really is a concern, package the milk in that. That's not cheap. Or I mean, that is cheap. It's not expensive to do that. So you don't need it in milk. You don't need it in any of these. These are just to make them white, and I don't know. It's just completely unnecessary. It makes me angry. Anyway, as of November 2022, the use of titanium dioxide has been banned in food in Europe because of health concerns. So these concerns stem from a few different studies that show carcinogenic effects on rodents and also cardiovascular system malfunction and nervous system damage due to oxidation in the brain. That is a lot of things that are very bad. Anything that's carcinogenic and known to be, or there's significant evidence in studies that shows that, in my opinion, there's absolutely no reason to have that in our food unless it's absolutely necessary. People do not need this in their food, to say the least. And I know the study's done on rodents. They're not making people drink tons of milk that has this in it, or like giving them this ingredient. They're not giving them to people. They don't want to hurt people, so that's why these studies are hard to design. If it kills a rat or other animals, or leads to cancer in their thyroids, or oxidizes their brain and causes nervous system damage, I don't want to eat it. I don't think anybody should eat it. There's strong evidence that shows we're very similar to animals, and if it hurts them, it's most likely going to hurt us. We shouldn't do that. There's just no need for that. Anyway, where even was I? I'm going to end up, this is going to be an hour-long episode. Where I don't lost where I was. Okay, here we are. A study in 2019. Again, this study will be in the show notes. I don't know how to pronounce their names. They always have complicated names for whatever reason. It concluded that, and here's a quote from the study. It says, regular supply of TiO2 NPS, which is titanium dioxide, at small doses can affect the intestinal mucosa, the brain, the heart, and other internal organs, which can lead to an increased risk of developing many diseases, tumors, or progress existing cancer processes. That is a big statement to unpack. Basically, they're microdosing rats with titanium dioxide, but kind of chronically. So, like, they're having it every day, but they're not having a ton of it. Was my understanding of the literature. I don't know if that's... I don't know. Microdosing is probably the wrong word, but they're feeding rats this stuff, and they're not giving them a lot of it, but they're doing it consistently. And it's showing that basically their entire body is seeing adverse effects, namely the heart, the brain, all of your organs. Basically, it says other internal organs, but probably most of them. It progresses tumors, so it's likely carcinogenic is what that means. I guess I didn't clarify it until now, but carcinogenic means it causes cancer, it leads to cancer, or there's like a link with cancer, whatever word you want to use. So anything that is carcinogenic has no reason to be in our food, in my opinion. I don't know if that's a hot take, that I don't want cancer-causing ingredients in my food, but you shouldn't either. Trust me, it's not cool. Okay, anyway, continuing on. Number 3 has got me fired up. Where was I? Okay, despite these findings, here's another quote. The FDA continues to allow for the safe use of titanium dioxide as a color additive in foods, generally according to the specifications and conditions, including that the quantity of titanium dioxide does not exceed 1% by weight of food, found in FDA regulations at 21 CFR 73575. That comes from tdma.info. It's relevant as of 2023. You don't need to care about those numbers or anything. Basically what it means is the FDA is saying it's perfectly fine to have titanium dioxide in your food as long as it does not exceed 1% by weight of the food. So I don't know about you guys, but 1% of a cancer causing, like, how do I want to word this? If 1% of my sandwich is giving me cancer, I don't want to eat that sandwich. And like, there's no reason for this in here. Like, it's meant to make things bright white and protect them from UV. Okay, it doesn't need to be bright white, whatever you're eating. It does not need to shine and glisten in the moonlight. There's no reason for that. Things in nature are not that bright in terms of food, unless like you find maybe a very particular flour or something that's bright white. But my milk does not need to like have its own light, you know what I mean? It does not need to be that bright. And so like it said in there, as of last year, 2022, in November, so like literally a year ago, it was banned in Europe because of these studies that came out in like 2019 and earlier. That's pretty late for Europe, and it's worth noting that Europe does still allow very unhealthy ingredients like high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, all the things I said about the sodas earlier. They allow most of those. preservatives, different sort of things. So even though I'm comparing what they're banning to what we're banning, they're not good either. We're just horribly bad. And that's what I'm trying to highlight here is that our FDA is horribly bad at this. And I don't know the politics. I'm not going to get into any of the politics. I just know I don't want to eat poison. I don't want to eat carcinogens. I don't want my family or friends to be eating carcinogens. I don't want the human lifespan in the US to be lower than all the other developed countries because of this sort of thing. And you'll notice all of these ingredients are completely unnecessary in the product. You can make an amazing product without these. And like I said, you don't need your bread to be bright white. It's fine if it's like off-white beige. Like people will still buy the product. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I guess it's not off topic, but it's certainly not on the list anymore. We're gonna go to number 4 before this episode ends up being 3 hours long. I'm trying to keep it short for the first one. And fourth one, again, is one that I have not heard about prior to doing this research. It's called potassium bromate. And if you've been paying attention, you might recognize that bromate, that word there. So, number 1, brominated vegetable oil. Number 4, potassium bromate. It's related. Whatever this bromide nonsense is, they need to stop using it. It's very bad for you. And also, I'm getting off topic again, but these are just 4 ingredients that I'm going over today. There are literally hundreds of ingredients that are banned in other parts of the world that we just allow ourselves to eat in everyday life in the US. And looking at just 4 of them and like just scratching the surface of how bad they are, I just want that to really show the vastness of how big this issue is in other aspects of it. So anyway, what is potassium bromate? It's a chemical additive commonly used in the food industry to help strengthen dough and enhance the texture of baked goods. It's often added to breads, rolls, and other baked goods to make them rise higher and have a more uniform texture. That comes from eatingwell.com. That will be in the show notes or description. Another bread one, and another one that's completely unnecessary in the bread or other related bread products like crackers and that sort of thing. You won't find it as much in those, but regardless, more bread. Stop eating bread, I guess. I don't know. Let's see in here. Common foods that have this in it are bagels, bread, crackers, donuts, pizza crust, just about anything that has bread in it. It's not a necessary ingredient, like I just said. And this one is actually banned. I alluded to it earlier. This is the one that's banned in China. As far as I know, China does not care about their people's health that much. This is a banger episode for the first one, but if China's banning it, we sure as hell should be banning it. But it's banned in Europe, China, Canada, and Brazil. And I saw somewhere California as well, but I couldn't find much more on it for California, so they might be eating it over there. I'm not really sure. Either way, nobody should be eating it. Why should we not be eating it? Let's find out. Lost where I was again because I keep ranting. Oh, it's also banned in Brazil. I don't know if I said that. Again, Brazil is not known for extravagant health. We'll just say that. Here's another quote. Potassium bromate has been found to increase risk of cancer in animals and act as a free radical, causing oxidative damage in lab studies with human liver and intestinal cells. This comes from Kelsey Koenig. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist, reputable source, and she was looking at multiple studies, not just one, but I'm quoting her here. Here's another quote. The International Agency for Research on Cancer considers it a possible human carcinogen, and the Center for Science in the Public Interest petitioned the FDA to ban it nearly 20 years ago. That's from cornucopia.org. So we have significant evidence that shows it is likely a human carcinogen. that we should not be eating. In the lab, it developed cancer in actual human cells. It wasn't given to a live human, but it was given to liver cells and intestinal cells. Basically, that's bad. And the FDA was petitioned. This says nearly 20 years ago. I don't know what that exact year is. This article was from 2021, 2022, something like that. And the FDA didn't do anything because it's the FDA and they don't care about you. But despite this, the FDA still allows the ingredient to be used today. The reason behind this seems to be because when it's baked properly, the majority of bromate in the product is converted into potassium bromide, which is supposedly harmless. So the bromate that's being directly added, the potassium bromate is being directly added into the product, has that bromate, which is a known carcinogen, very bad for you. But if baked properly, this bromate turns into some kind of bromide, okay? When you heat it up properly, whatever properly means, I couldn't find anything on that. Like, I'm just gonna keep reading on here because this is just stupid, in my opinion. But you should agree with me, I think, on these. But the let's see. There's always gonna be trace amounts of the bromide or bromate in there. You cannot expect manufacturing to be perfect. There is human error. There is error in the machinery, the manufacturing process itself. And it's not, again, this is not a necessary ingredient in brewing, in making bread. So there's just no reason to rely on big manufacturing to do things perfectly for us, to like erase the carcinogen that's starting out in the bread. Like, what? That is crazy that we're just like not banning this. Anyway, cameras are going to turn off again. I hate this 20-minute limit. Maybe I can get through this last quote. FDA, this is a quote. The FDA has worked with the American Bakers Association to help the industry improve baking technology and testing so that the ingredients are used in a way that results in no or minimal detectable residual bromate. ABA has indicated that normal control measures can ensure that bromate residues are well below 20 parts per million. This is from Boston 25 News, again, in the show notes. This is just like, we're going to cut because the cameras are going to turn off. But I'll tell you why it's kind of absurd that the FDA goes to such lengths to keep this carcinogen in the food that we're eating in this bread. I'll be right back. Should be good enough. All right, so before my cameras turn themselves off because they have a 20-minute limit and it infuriates me, I was talking about how... What was I talking about? It was important. Oh, the lengths that they're going to in this, according to this article from Boston 25 News, they say that the FDA has worked with the American Bakers Association to ensure proper manufacturing with this ingredient in it, to ensure that only 20 parts per million are allowed of this carcinogenic ingredient. And I hate these things that I keep seeing throughout this research. Again, this is only 4 ingredients. But I keep seeing that they allow things, but in certain tolerances. So they allow 1% of titanium dioxide in your food. As long as it doesn't exceed 1%, they consider that safe to eat. I take issue with that. If something is known to be a carcinogen, it's carcinogenic, causes cancer, or leads to cancer later in life, whatever word you want to use, you should not be eating it in any capacity. Especially not without you knowing it, which is one of the biggest issues I have with this ingredient, is that as of, I don't have a date for it actually, but FDA now requires that potassium bromate be put on the ingredient labels in the products that it's used in. How nice of them. They're telling us the ingredients that are in the product. I didn't know they could just not tell you what's on the ingredients list. I didn't research this more on how the logistics of this work. I don't understand how they weren't showing this on the list. If it's an ingredient in a product, how is it not on the ingredients list? That doesn't track. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, where do I even start? So, and it's worth noting this is banned in Europe, right? At least Europe. It's probably banned in other places too. This is the one that's banned in Europe, China, Canada, and Brazil, and maybe other places too. Those are just the four that I found. Um, why can't we just ban it like them? Why you have to like cooperate with the American Baking Association, Bakers Association, whatever it is, to improve the production of the product with this carcinogenic ingredient to make sure you're only giving the consumer a little bit of cancer causing juice. Isn't it easier to just say you can't use it? Obviously, I don't know how the politics work, but if it causes cancer and it's banned in at least 4 first world countries, why do we not just ban it from use as well? Back to the French example, because this is using bread too. French people are still eating baguettes, and they sure as heck don't have potassium bromate in it. Whatever, like, I'm sure the bread in other countries is still good bread, right? We don't need this like fake stuff that makes it brighter or makes it have more fluff to it. There's no need for that, in my opinion, and I feel like most people can agree with me. And the potassium bromate used to not be put on the ingredients label for products. Like, how is that even legal? I don't, and that makes me distrust anything that I see on an ingredient label. What are they not putting on that they could potentially be using? And and for someone like me that is sitting in my basement and has done like hours of research on these topics, like now I know to look for this, and it is now required on the label. So if I see it, obviously I'm not going to eat it. But think of somebody that's like a single mom, right? She has 2 kids, she has a full-time job, something like that. She needs like she's not going to do this kind of research, right? And she shouldn't have to. Like some you should not have to have a master's degree in dietetics to have an understanding of what food is safe to eat, right? And we have a Food and Drug Administration that is regulating our food, what we're able to eat and what manufacturers are allowed to use. And what I found in this is that they are not doing very much in that respect. And this is not an attack on anybody that works for the FDA, anything like that. I'm just a concerned citizen that knows with a quick Google searches. I mean, I found results immediately looking these up. Like multiple studies would show up, tons of articles that show the dangers of all these things. It's not like it's hidden information. Like they know this stuff too, and we're still allowing them to eat it, or they're still allowing us to eat it, and they're supposed to be regulating our food. And you know, it's a free country. You make your own choices. You can choose to eat this stuff, but you need a damn PhD to understand holistically what is good for you and what is not. Because in something as simple as bread, like there's tons of different carcinogenic ingredients in loads of bread that I didn't know about, and like this isn't even, these are only ingredients that are banned in other countries that are not banned in the U.S. And like I said earlier, there's hundreds of these, at least, and that is, and the other countries are still allowing horrible ingredients that slowly kill you, basically, or quickly. I don't know if you're allergic to it, but that it's irrelevant. But it's not okay that these things are not being regulated, and when they are being regulated, it's certain numbers and quantity and weight that is like that you're allowed to consume, but they're not even on the ingredients label. Like that's not okay. But anyways, is there anything else I wanted to say about this? Because I should probably wrap it up before I just keep going down tangents. let's see. I probably don't even finish like the things that I'm saying because I can get on to another thing. Um, Basically, my point with this, uh, read your ingredients labels if you can. Um, I know it's people don't read ingredients labels for what's being shipped into Wendy's or different places. And honestly, those are like the most likely contenders for these ingredients are not Wendy's specifically. I'm not like coming at them. I don't know what they use in their products, but these bigger corporations that make their own products will tend to use these cheaper ingredients to make their stuff look better artificially as a whitening agent, that sort of thing. But read your ingredient labels. Try to be aware that that this stuff is out there and that they are not looking out for you. You have to advocate for yourself entirely and wholly. Just look at your labels. Anyways, I gotta wrap this up before I just go for 3 more hours because there's like 5 more hidden episodes in here that I could go off of. And this is only 4 ingredients. If you like this sort of stuff, if you like me just rambling in my basement to nobody in particular, let me know. Normally it'll probably be a little more casual than this episode. I want to do some more lighthearted stuff. I don't want to attack anybody. I'm not doing that sort of thing. But this is something I'm very passionate about and knew it would be very easy to ramble about for 40 minutes or much longer. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching episode 1. Tune in for more later on. I have no idea how often this will be, but thank you. I'm heading out. I got to stop talking. I'll see you next time.